Okay. Today, my guest is Professor Ilan Vertinsky. I'll keep my introduction short to maximize our time with him. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk about Ilan as a person, Professor Vertinsky as a thought leader and an esteemed scholar, and finally as a mentor to many PhD students and junior faculty. For the sake of time, I'll skip many of his accomplishments and give you a very quick snapshot. Professor Vertinsky has written extensively on international business and international trade with a focus on Asia, strategic management of high-tech firms, and comparative management with a focus on Japan and China. He has also notable papers in forest policy and forest economics. He has served as an area editor, associate editor, or editor-in-chief of various field journals, such as JIBS, the Canadian Journal of Operations Research and Information Processing, and Journal of Business Administration, among others. He has received the Distinguished Scholar in Residence Award from the Peter Wall Institute and the Outstanding Scholarship Award from AGSM, as well as several research and teaching awards from University of British Columbia, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and University of International Business and Economics in Beijing. Thank you, Ilan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Perfect. First question, what did you want to become when you were a child?
You asked me what I wanted to be when I was a child.
Yeah.
Depending in what age, I did change my ways. But I actually wanted to, when I was around 10 or 11, I wanted to be a nuclear physicist and a politician. Very interesting combination, but it plays a role actually in my career later.
Ilan, where did you grow up?
So
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Israel, and I'm just adjusting my voice. I grew up I was born in it wasn't Israel when I was born, but it became Israel when I was a child. I was there until I went to study in Berkeley for my PhD.
Okay, and what made you choose international business as a field?
Well, I was always interested in international politics, so it was more or less my hobby rather than my training. My training was operation research in Berkeley and economics, and I kind of gravitated. I started doing international business because of interest, and I continued throughout the years to do both, to do a variety of things in the same time. So, for example, my appointment in Northwestern was in managerial economics, and then when I moved to Vancouver, to UBC, I actually was doing a combination of having an appointment both in the business school and also in the Institute of Animal Ecology. But that has to do more, and in fact, I had a choice to be fully in the business school, 2/3 in ecology, and it is animal ecology, so it was the discipline in zoology. And I actually chose what I knew less, which was I chose 2/3 in the institute and 1/3 in the business school. And over the years, I also moved to the Institute of Asian Research with the same kind of proportion. And now I'm actually wholly in the business school. And in terms of teaching, I always liked to teach. And most of the years I taught international business. And it was something that I like to teach. I still like to teach. And so that's kind of the involvement. But in terms of research, I actually had to go and look at my resume and see what I've done in international business, and I found out that it was throughout all these years, I always was engaged, even when I did things such as forestry. It had to do with usually the trade issues, and in fact, both in practice, I was advising the government in dealing with some of our trade dispute with the US, and so that's it.
I see. About forest policy and forest economics, that was unique. It was unique on your CV. Your research on forestry. How did they come about? How did it became important? Actually, you do have a very strong pipeline in forest economics.
Well, I mean, in some ways, my career was driven by opportunities and interests. Okay, so if you have an interest in policy, politics, etc. For example, I was running two centers in the university here for many years each, and one of them was a contract. UBC was one of 5 centers that the Canadian Foreign Ministry supported. It was called Center for International Business Studies, and so that kind of kept me interested in the issues of trade and the other one was again a center that was supported by another ministry, federal ministry, which was forestry. They were interested really in forest economics and forest issues. And that kind of allowed me both to be on the practical side and also on the theory side. And in fact, by the way, some of my skills in terms of simulation and operation research and economics kind of allow, and international business kind of all mixed up. So over the 15 years that I ran that center, first of all, but the center got a lot of money over the years, and I not hired, but I involved a lot of faculty members with a grant program in the center's activities. So I learned about a lot of issues. Also, by the way, for example, in international business, being an area editor was a learning process for me as well, knowing more and more about it and getting then more interested in things.
Interesting. Ilan, some things not on your CV that people might find interesting about you, some hobbies. What have you? Can you tell us about your hobbies that you would not put on your CV?
So
any hobbies that you might find?
Oh, hobbies. Yeah, I like, in fact, by the way, one of the reasons I sort of liked to move from, when I was in Northwestern, by the way, I was saying I loved the university. I thought it was great and gave me a lot of opportunities. And in fact, one of the opportunities was they helped me get they had an Institute of Intersocietal Studies that was supported by the Ford Foundation. And through them, I got a grant for 1 year to go to South America, to Colombia. And in that particular case, it was in a big project, a simulation project, basically a development project that involved developing large simulation. By the way, large simulation those days was not so large as today, because the computer power, etc., were significantly lower. But in any case, this kind of so being there, I got interested in the health, because and if you looked at my resume, you would find out that there was, in those early days, I had a whole lot of publication on health, health management. Mostly it was operation research kind of economic kind of work. And so that did not, it had only to a certain extent, it had some international part, but during that time I also kind of was interested then in both in politics in Colombia, land economics policies, etc. And so kind of my career was always moving, but I always kept, I would say that's what I found out to my surprise, that all these years I always done something on international economics or international business.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and of course, by the way, my work also was influenced, not just influenced, but enriched by the fantastic students that I had over time. And so from them, I learned quite a bit.
Yeah, I actually counted your PhD students on your CV. It was, I think
Well,
I stopped counting it.
I had 30 students, 30 PhD students that I supervise. In fact, the last student is not even in UBC, it's in Kenya. So I'm just finishing her. We had some arrangement with a university in Kenya, the UBC, and that university. And so I was asked to supervise a student, and like 4 years ago, and she's about to finish now. And in fact, there they ask you to, and again, her interest was social media. So I had to learn about social media, and so that's kind of like a drive. Now it's not a good, it's not something that I will advise others. You know, my student always was advised by me to focus, and they done very well. I try to focus by having, at least in each field that I worked, at least some critical mass.
Interesting. Ilan, if you could do it all over again, would you follow the same path or would you change your trajectory?
The only change I would have done is early in my career, actually, when I was a PhD student, I was in great hurry, despite the fact I was in Berkeley, and after 2 years I took my exams, my oral exam and all the prelims, and instead of staying and enjoying the life I did there and learning there, I actually took my first job, and which was not far away because I was having to write my dissertation still, and then moved to Northwestern after 1 year, and which was a good experience, and I did finish my PhD. But I kind of, in retrospect, I would say I really enjoy my life there, and I could have done the teaching, the learning there, rather than as I moved on. Now, I was taking courses any place, like in Northwestern. I took courses in economics, and in UBC, I was auditing a lot of courses. And on the biology side, I and my first PhD student, who was in ecology, not in the business school, we went together to courses. I took the same courses they did. But I did have the methodology side. That was kind of the core of my movement. But then, otherwise it was interest that was driving me.
What are you most proud of?
Well, I'm always the most proud of the students that I generated, because they are the ones who are now they are the ones who are the thought leaders, etc. Though I'm still having my thought about international business now, which became a much more focus of what I'm doing these days.
Okay.
And by the way, I don't know if you got. I didn't update my CV for the. So you for the last year. Once a year I did
Uh,
it. There is a
uh,
lot more in international business in my CV as it will come in 1 month. So
okay. After the recording, I will ask for you to send me an updated bio, which will be posted on the webpage.
yeah. No, it's
Perfect. So, Ilan, let's say you're stranded on the side of the road in a small village. Locals don't know anything about you. They are curious what you do for a living. What do you explain to people who don't read scholarly journals about what you do and why your research is important?
well, it depends. Since I do different things, I have different stories for different people, right? So especially when you're in the grant business, you have to you cannot appear to be not focused. So I'm quite focused about my interests, and in each one of them I think I do some important things and some less important things, and so I mean, the common things used to be operation research and methodology. So I would emphasize contribution to especially simulation, but also I've done some work on optimization. The work on international business is probably the easiest to explain because I was on the practical side. I was involved in some negotiation that involved disputes on international business. Some of my work right now is definitely is important because it involves with issues. In this particular case, for example, the last year I was focused on basically what I think is important. It's an important theme in international business, and I'm not the first one to say that. Thies was one of the people who's pushing for the importance of the differences in the global arena in terms of political geography, and so explaining that is easy because most people now understand and sometimes are afraid necessarily or not necessarily about relationship between China, especially in the technology field, the race between China and the US, and so the race for, I would call hegemony. And in fact, my last paper, I think, in Gibbs, which haven't yet, it was published but haven't yet appeared it's still available online, has to do with the relationship between China and the US, especially in the area of technology, but where I found out that misunderstanding between the two nations is essentially kind of quite dangerous for the world. And so when I explain to people, first of all, to understand how important it is to understand the other culture. It's not just the other culture, the other system, the other ideologies, basically the other perception. So in fact, one paper that I'm still struggling and I'm revising it now, has to do with the importance of incorporating Chinese perspective into the AIB. And the idea, as it happened, I was pleasantly surprised to see an editorial by the new editor of Gibbs. Very, very nice, very important, I think, editorial. But one of the themes that she is pushing is again to have and I look at it, Western and non-Western perspective, the idea of moving it into in this case, into the Jeeves arena, and she's committed to do so. Before that, we had, I mean, the idea of Chinese perspective introduced to AIB and its publication. I was asked by the former editor-in-chief to help a group of Chinese scholars to develop basically a debate about the issue of Chinese perspective. And it took 3 years, but we eventually submitted something about half a year ago, and we are now working on redoing it because things move since then. There is now more recognition of the need to do so.
Okay, the current editor-in-chief is Rosetta Tang, and the previous one was Ilan Vertinsky. Just for the records, case someone in the future listens to this interview. I've seen the paper, the most recent Jeeves paper that you've written on the Chinese and American competition. About the next 5 years, some 5 to 10 years of IB research. Obviously, you're talking about geopolitics, you're talking about political science, international relations, conflict, and sources of conflict. Would you say the next 5 to 10 years of the field is going to be focused on these areas, or do you have other predictions?
No, I think there are a lot of, I mean, this is one of the things that I think international business always attracted me. It's the diversity or disciplinary diversity and diversity of issues that it deals, anything from micro issues to basically global issues. It's not anything, it's super macro issues, and the openness of the system. So if I look at the kind of topics that I dealt with, they're all still, you know, there are always progress in them, not by me necessarily, by other people. And we learn more, and also the arena changes, so the content changes, but it can be anywhere from cultural differences, not just ideological and political difference. There is, so I think that will continue, though it's not anymore, it would not be anymore just looking at distance. So distance is not dead, okay? It's there, but there are a lot of studies on distance. So it is the movement is to go to more detail, to more context. This is in terms of this area. One area that is extremely important, which I am engaged in, and is of course the innovation and technological innovation and the issues of intellectual property protection and the different levels of it. So that's, I think, that's I think this basically emphasize that, he identify that as one of the key issues in some ways. In the China context, he looks at it as, and there, by the way, our paper kind of goes against his kind of claim that this is an urgent issue. We feel it's an important issue, and it's important. That's one of the reasons that I think that much more dialogue between Chinese scholars and others, and you know, North American and European scholars is very important, and I can see this area certainly important. I'm not quite sure that, given the way we publish, etc., it's an easy area for people to get in, unless they are kind of political scientists, and the problem with political scientists that they don't have necessarily the same interests as we in international business have, that is business. But for example, my kind of last partner on this area is a political scientist, and so kind of people suggest again more interdisciplinarity in our field, and I think that in that particular area it is certainly an important thing. But I can see international finance is a very important area. I can see, especially today or yesterday, you can see the whole world now is teetering on the possibility of another, another crisis or another deep global recession. Okay, so I see that this climate change, of course, that's another area that I do work on, and again, the climate change now is involved in almost anything. Okay, both in the economic, the strategy side, etc. And I can see more and more of it coming in also into international business. So I think that there is a big arenas, and the great thing about the international business that everybody can find his own. If you like micro kind of issues, the cross-border micro issues are pretty difficult and interesting to solve.
Thank you. So Ilan was mentioning about current banking or financial sector meltdown on mismanaged risks, especially in the regional banks and Credit Suisse example. When you were going through the PhD program yourself, what was the best advice you received from your advisors?
What advice I have about...
What advice did they give to you when you were going through the PhD program at Berkeley?
I don't think that I got any advice.
Okay. Well, what is your advice?
In fact, they probably were so happy to get rid of me that...
Okay. Oh, no, it is not true. But...
No, I think that focusing is very important. But I had... my supervisor was a philosopher, so who, by the way, was the father of operation research, Wes Churchman, and he was very inspiring and actually kind of maybe the influence that he gave me was, or the advice that he gave me is go and conquer the world, more or less. But he did not want to constrain what I do. He wanted to enable it, I say, but that's not advice that I give. I definitely, if you are interested, I usually used to give 1 year for students to decide what they want to do in the sense, and people, and quite often the people that I actually like to attract to be my students were people with great visions and a lot of intellectual power. So I would not constrain it, but from my experience, I know that during your PhD, you should probably get your degree sometime. So basically with this kind of advice, I would say sometimes after a year, those who did not, I had people who drove me rather than I drove them, okay? And that was actually quite great. And they were career oriented, they were very bright, and they've done, by the way, very, very well, okay? So I did, but people who kind of were a little bit more spread, who did not focus. After 1 year, I'll say, you want to finish, do this, this, and that. And then we negotiate, and then they focus, and they will finish. And I said, after you finish, when you get a job, then fly, go up. And many of them done it. I mean, I'm very proud of them.
I mean, obviously, best dissertation is a finished dissertation, and any offer is better than no offer in the job market. But I have a question about.
Yeah, sorry.
Very focused. Some PhD students are very focused on their paper, their job market paper, and there is nothing else. They've got only one paper under their belt.
No, but that's right. I mean, the type of students that I actually probably attracted at the time, we're not one paper people. Okay, that I said it was more trying to make sure that they finish quickly, or not overly quickly, but quickly, and then get a good career. Unfortunately, by the system right now is where you have ranking and rating, and an A journal versus a B journal, whether a B- journal. So again, this is the reality. So as students have to live within this reality, but yet find ways to, because the reality actually follows. We have, for example, in UBC, a list of journals in each division. Fortunately, you can publish in other divisions, okay, in their list, okay, but I would say that it's very, it narrows one's possibilities. So, for example, if you want to do something on climate change and publish in environmental journals, you may not find. Now, fortunately, we do have very enlightened management, a very good dean and a very good, associate dean. So though we have these restraints and constraints, there is recognition that especially new people can do something broader, and they can come and plead their case. But again, I think that will disappear, because it's necessary, because all these kind of journals that are not legitimate journals are appearing, okay, and right there you can, daily you get, I'm sure you get 15 invitations to be an editor, to be to publish something within 48 hours with reviews. So you need to have somewhere things that suggest quality, okay, but in the same time, and journals that definitely are interested in articles that will lead to citation, etc. So their impact factor will be high. It's a race that has some good stuff in it, good impact in it, because it's necessary in some way to have quality within this, deluge of bad, basically low quality journals. But I think this is, and now we have, of course, the question of can you have your paper written by AI applications? It is a serious problem, by the way.
It is in the MBA program. Some of my students actually tried to do some of their assignments, their cases, their write-ups using ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and its variants. It actually shows, and when they are redoing their assignments, they are rethinking about whether they should have submitted in the first place. Chomsky had a great quote on that one. It is the most advanced form of plagiarism. And actually is a point. For the sake of time, what is a question that I should have asked you but haven't?
you asked a lot of nice questions, so I don't know if I was ready for more. I usually don't lose. I always have some answer, but I think you within half an hour. I saw I have to give you a compliment. I looked at some of you other, and unfortunately, I'm not as interesting a candidate as some that you had. But I really enjoyed
I
them.
disagree. Ilan, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed our conversation.
So did I.
I'm sure it will help many PhD students and junior faculty progress in their careers. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Goodbye.